Welcome back. In our last lecture, we have discussed what are the sequence of operations that are involved in establishing a call with respect to a local exchange. So we have discussed what are the sequence of operations that are involved to make a call or to establish a call, and then after the call is established, how to disconnect. All those things are discussed in our previous lecture. And now today we will discuss what are the signal exchanges that are taking place when we are establishing a local call with the help of a local exchange. So there exists a number of actions that need to be taken care by an exchange. So with respect to the relative time of these signals, we can consider a figure A. So let us consider a figure A in which it is shown how the timing of signals are varying with respect to establishment of a local call. How signals are being exchanged between the exchange and the end user, whether it is calling person or the called person. On x-axis we will have time. Of course it is not time scaled, and y-axis we are dealing with event. What's the event or what's the operation or what's the state we are dealing with. So initially we know the system will be in idle state. So before a call is being placed or when the telephone handset is on hook, we call such state as idle state. So once the calling person takes his handset, so a call request will be sent to the exchange. The call request signal is also called as C signal. We know that. So once the call request is sent to the exchange, so connection need to be established. Before establishing connection from exchange to the calling person, so the exchange detects what is the from where the signal is coming, or that means it converts EN to directory number, that is DN, equipment number to directory number, and also it checks or it determines, the exchange determines what are the class of service that are provided for that particular calling person, and then it identifies the calling person. So because billing has to be done. So once all those operations are performed by the local exchange, it will connect to calling terminal. So a connection is being made to calling terminal. So after establishing a connection, the exchange will send a message or a signal, that is proceed to send signal. So once the calling person receives the proceed to send signal, he starts dialing the destination address or by sending address signal with the help of dial pad. So the calling person enters to whom he wants to make a call with the help of address signal. So after entering the address, so a signal will be sent to the exchange. So that is what address signal is. So with the reception of address signal, so now the exchange, that is the local exchange, should detect which end user it has to connect. Not only that, it also detects or it also determines the class of service that are available with the called person, and he identifies it and he checks the status of the called person, whether he is free or not. All those things will be analyzed by the local exchange. After that, a connection to called terminal or called person is established. Of course, after establishing a connection to call terminal, a status signal is sent to the exchange. So from the called person, status, whether he is free or not, all those information will be sent to the status with the help of status signal. Once status signal is received, as well as once the connection is established, an alert signal is sent to the called person. an alert message or alert signal is sent to the called person. After receiving the alert signal, so the called person holds his handset with the help of, once he holds his handset, so answer signal will be sent to the local exchange. Answer signal will be sent to the local exchange, as well as the answer signal will be sent to the calling person. So indicate you can proceed to, you can start the conversation. So once the answer signal is received by the calling person, he starts communicating. Of course, before he starts communicating, a connection will be established by the exchange. So a complete connection will be completed from the calling person to the called person. Once with the help of the connection establishment or connection being completed, so both end users can start conversation. So they can start conversating with each other. So once conversation is complete, the calling person may replaces his handset. So once he replaces his handset, a clear signal will be sent to the exchange. So that is what clear signal is taking place. Of course, the clear signal, forward clear signal will be given to the called customer. Again, once he receives the called clear signal, he again sends the backward clear signal. Of course, we will discuss how the signal changes or how signals are interchanged between exchange and the end users in detail. So once the clear signal is received by the exchange, so the exchange will disconnect the connection. So once disconnection take place, again the system comes back to the idle state. Again, if any other end user starts dialing the call or wants to make a call, so again these procedures are continued. So these are the signal exchanges that are taking place inside a telephone system when we are dealing with local call. Of course, local call take place with the help of a local exchange. Now we will discuss few important concepts. If the signals are sent in the direction away from the caller, that is towards the called line, are called as forward signals. If the calling person is transmitting signal towards the exchange and then towards the called person, we call such signals as forward signals. Similarly, if the signals are sent towards the caller, that is away from the called line, such signals are called as backward signals. That means if signals are transmitted from the called person through exchange and back to the calling person, so we call such signals as backward signals. So two types of signals basically we have, that is forward signals and backward signals. So generally the forward signals pass from the caller to the exchange and then to the called customer. Of course, the backward signal pass from the exchange to the caller, and from the called customer to the exchange. So from the called customer to the exchange. And of course, we will see how signal exchanges take place with the help of this block diagram. As we can see here, this figure B shows the signal exchange diagram for a local exchange. So we will be having a local exchange where I want to establish a call from the calling person to the called person or a customer. So this signal exchange diagram clearly defines how operations or how signals are being transmitted from exchange to calling person as well as from exchange to called person. So initially when the calling person wants to calling person means calling terminal. When he wants to make a call, so he initially takes his handset from the telephone. So that is what off hook. Once off hook happens, a C signal or call request signal is sent to the switching system. Switching system is nothing but an exchange. Generally we are dealing with local call, so we are dealing with local exchange. So once the local exchange receives the C signal or call request signal, so it will check who wants to communicate, and this exchange checks what are the class of service, and it determines who is the end user, and for this end user billing has to be done with the help of metering or ticketing. So once it received or once it determined the end user, that are the calling person, it sends back the signal. So that is proceed to send signal is sent to the calling person. So once he listens to dial tone or ringing tone, so he starts dialing the number or to whom he wants to communicate. So he sends the address signal to the exchange. So the exchange detects where the called person is, and based on that address it sends the alert signal to the intended destination or terminal, that is call terminal. So once alert signal is sent to the call terminal, the telephone of the called user or called customer starts ringing. So this ringing sound should be sent to the called person also. So this exchange also sends the status, or you can say alert signal, status or call progress signal or call processing signal is sent to the calling person. He is able to listen the ringing tone. So once this end user receives the call and answers, so answer signal will be sent to the exchange. Of course the same answer signal is sent to the calling customer, saying he can start communicating. Once the answer signal is received by this calling person, a complete connection will be established between the calling person and the called person. So connection is completed and both can start conversating. So once conversation is complete, so the calling person may terminate the call or the called person may terminate the call. Let us assume the calling person is terminating the call. So once the calling person terminates the call, a clear signal, that is since signal is going towards the exchange, we call it as forward clear. So forward clear signal is sent to the exchange. Again the signal is forwarded to the call terminal. So once the call terminal receives the forward clear signal, so he again sends back the backward clear. He reply for this forward clear with a backward clear signal. So the backward clear signal will be received by this exchange, that is local exchange, and it is forwarded to calling person, backward clear signal. So once backward clear signal is received by the calling person, the exchange will breaks or disconnects the connection. The connection will be disconnected. Similarly, if the called terminal or if the called person is disconnecting the call, so in such case backward clear signal will be sent through this exchange to the calling person, and for this backward clear signal, so the calling terminal will reply with a forward clear signal, in the opposite direction. Once forward clear signal is received by the call terminal, the connection will be disconnected. So it is clear that in this figure termination is taking place or call is being disconnected by the calling person. That's why initially we are having forward clear and then backward clear. So it is clearly observed that there exists a handshake protocol. That is, for each signal produced, a response will be produced in the opposite direction. As we have seen, for each signal there exists a response from the system in the opposite direction. So thus verifying correct operation. So as we have seen initially, the call request signal is answered by the proceed to send signal, and then address signal is answered by the call status signal, and also the answer signal is response to the alert signal, and the caller responds to the answer signal by commencing the conversation. Of course, the backward signal is a response to the forward signal, as we have seen here. Backward, that is for a forward signal, backward signal is a response. So if we are dealing with a call over a junction between two exchanges, so generally a trunk exists between two exchanges or a junction. Generally a trunk is sometimes called as a junction. So when there exists a call taking place over a junction, that is between two exchanges, so there exists certain actions between customers, that is calling signal and the connection to the outgoing line occurs at the originating exchange. Generally all operations will be monitored by the outgoing exchange. As we can see in this figure, how signal exchanges are being taking place when a call is being made over a junction. Over a junction, generally when we are having call being made between two exchanges, then both exchanges are connected by a number of trunks, or we call it as a junction, by a certain number of junctions. So both exchanges are connected. So we are dealing with call established between end users who are connected to different local exchanges. So as previously defined, so calling terminal initially starts sending C signal or call request signal. So this call request signal will be forwarded to its adjacent local exchanges. That is, C signal will be sent to the next local exchange. Of course, local exchange is nothing but a switching system, we know, and since the call is originating from this end, we call this as originating exchange, and the call is terminating at this exchange, we call it as terminating exchange, because this end user or the called person is connected to this particular exchange. So that's why we call it as terminating exchange. So with the reception of C signal, so the terminating exchange starts sending proceed to send signal. So proceed to send signal is also forwarded to the calling person via the originating exchange. So with the reception of this proceed to send signal, he starts dialing the intended destination address with the help of address signal. So this address signal is given to originating exchange. Of course, this address signal is forwarded to terminating exchange. Next, it decides whether the address is connected to this particular exchange. So after deciding, it sends the alert signal to the intended destination, that is to the call terminal or called person. Alert signal will be sent. After sending this alert signal, once he receives the call, answer signal will be sent back in the opposite direction to the calling person. So with the reception of answer signal, this person, or with the reception of answer signal to the calling person, connection is completed. Connection will be completed via these two exchanges between calling person and the called person. So once connection is completed, both can start conversating with each other. So they can conversate up to how long they want to conversate. So after conversation is complete, so the calling, let us assume the calling person is closing the call or terminating the call. So once he terminates, the forward clear signal is sent to the originating exchange, and again this clear signal is forwarded to the called person. So for the reply of this forward clear signal, he again sends back the backward clear signal. Once this backward clear signal is reached to the calling person, this originating exchange clears down the connection. Originating exchange basically deals with clearing and establishing the connection with the help of terminating exchange. So once the connection is cleared, again the system goes back to idle state. We know that. Here billing for the call will be taken care by the originating exchange, because this person should be billed for how long he is making conversation. So that billing will be taken care by the originating exchange. Now let us consider another scenario in which a long distance call need to be made. And of course, for long distance call, the charging rate is normally determined at the trunk exchange. So trunk, you can call it as a trunk exchange or a tandem exchange. So the exchange that is higher level to the local exchange, sometimes called as a tandem exchange or trunk exchange. And please note that the called customer is connected to, of course, he is connected to local exchange, and that local exchange to the trunk exchange. Generally, trunk exchange as well as tandem exchanges are not directly connected to the customer. So when metering is employed, it is therefore necessary for the supervisory apparatus at the trunk exchange to send meter pulse back over to the, that is through junction to the originating local exchange. So we know this trunk exchange is deciding what amount to be billed. Of course, metering pulses are sent to the originating local exchange with the help of trunks or junction. If this trunk exchange is sending information, that is metering signal or pulse, meter pulses to the originating local exchange, we need to have a connection between trunk exchange and local exchange other than calls trunks or calls circuits. We need to establish, or we need to have a particular link. So we know with respect to automatic exchanges, we have discussed electromechanical exchanges as well as stored program control SPC exchanges. In the case of electromechanical exchanges, signals between exchanges are sent over the same inter-exchange circuits. So of course, as the calls to which they relate. So we know between exchanges, that is between tandem exchange and local exchange, or between exchanges, there exists a circuit over which calls are being sent. So on the same circuit, this control signals will be sent over the same inter-exchange circuits. So control signals are required for billing as well as for routing the call in an appropriate manner. So this type of signal transmission, that means calls being transmitted over the same circuit as that of the control signals. So such circuits or such type of switching systems are called as, or such systems are called as channel associated signaling. Because same channel is being used for transmitting signalings signaling signals or control signals as well as calls. We call such type as channel associated signaling. Similarly, in case of stored program control exchanges, inter-exchange signals that is nothing but control signals. Inter-exchange signals are generated by the processor. Of course, there exists processor in each switching systems in one exchange and acted upon by the processor in the other exchange. So please note that the signals that are generated on one, let us say, tandem exchange to the local exchange, so those signals are generated by processors that are inside this tandem exchange, as well as those signals are transferred to the. So in case of SPC exchange, that is stored program control exchange, so the signals are transferred over a high speed data link directly between the two processors. Of course, if I am speaking between two processors, it implies two exchanges. So here the inter-exchange signals are transferred over a high speed data link which is other than the link where calls are being transferred. So instead of being transmitted over a speech connection, so there exists separate type of links. One set of links are for speech connection, another set of link for control signals inter exchange between two exchanges or two processors. Of course, each exchange will be having its own processors. So we need to send control signals between two exchanges. So in such cases, that is in case of SPC exchange, a separate dedicated high speed data link is being provided, and this type is called as common channel signaling, and this type is said as common channel signaling. Of course, there are two types of signaling, which means when we are establishing a connection or how we are controlling the connection with the help of transmitting control signals is defined as signaling. So there are two types of signaling, that is channel associated signaling. If we are making use of a single link for transmitting both call as well as control signals, we call it as channel associated signaling. If we are using dedicated two types of links, that is for calls as well as for control signals, we call it as common channel signaling. So two types of signaling are involved. So next, let us discuss state transition diagram. Under this heading, we will discuss how call is being established from calling person to the called person with the help of a diagram. So that is what state transition diagram is. How states from state 0, that is idle state, to state 1, state 2, state 3. So how these states are changing, all those are given with the help of a diagram, that is pictorial representation, and that is what state transition diagram is. We already know what are the sequence of operations that are performed in call progress, that is from one state to another. So that is already discussed. So please note, the state transition diagram is basically with respect to exchange, that is generally let us deal with a local exchange. How with respect to local exchange, how signals are coming in, how signals are going out, all those things will be discussed under this state transition diagram. So we know for an exchange, calls will arrive depending upon what signals, or signals will arrive depending upon what signals that are coming in, certain operations, certain actions will be performed, and sometimes whatever the operations, what are the performance or an action that is being performed are called as task, and we call such thing as an event. So the combination of the present state and the new event defines the task. So in what state presently the exchange is, and also what new event is taking place. So that is what defining the next task, and performing this task results in the next state. So depending upon what task is being made, the next state will be decided. Of course, we will discuss how state transition diagram look like. Sometimes there can be more than one possible next state. We know it is possible to have two or more next states. So the choice depending on external information, depending upon what external information is, we will go for a particular state. So depending upon whether a called line is free or busy. So we know how, if called line is busy, it should go to what state, and if the called line is free, it should go to which state. All those things are discussed. So the sequence of operations can be clearly described by means of a state transition diagram. So whatever the operations that are performed inside an exchange will be clearly defined with the help of a state transition diagram, and the state transition diagram is shown in figure C. So this is what the state transition diagram is. So it will be having different type of graphical representations. So generally this basic symbols used in state transition diagram are shown in this figure. So we will be having a connector. So generally connectors are used for making connection from other diagram or from other state transition diagram or from other state. We will be having a connector, and then we will be having state box, in which state right now the exchange is will be defined by the state box. Of course, the state box will be having its own state number, and it will be having its own state descriptor or description. Of course, more information can be defined inside this state box. If more information wants to be displayed, that can be written here. And then we will be having another type, that is event box. So generally event box will be having indented arrow. It will be having an indented arrow either in this direction or in this direction. So if it is in this direction, it will be indicating forward signal. It will be indicating forward signal. Similarly, if it is on this side, so it will be indicating the backward signal. Of course, so this defines the event. That's why it is called as event box. Generally, this event box will be having indented arrow. Indented means inside for this box be having an arrow. So generally on one side it will be there, either on this side or on this side. The next set is action box. So generally we use a rectangular box indicating what action need to be taken care by the system or by the switching system. Of course, another type of action box is shown here. Please note, it will be having protruding arrow. So this arrow is shown in this way, that is backward signal is going on, means send signal from the exchange to the calling person. So that is what this arrow is. Similarly, on the other side we can have arrow either on one side, that is either on this side or on this side. Please note that this is a protruding arrow, and which is defining the action, and this is. So the next set of box is decision box. Basically it is of diamond shaped box. It's a diamond shaped box which will decide certain, or it will perform some task, or it will make decision. Whether the decision is yes, it will go to some state, let us say state 1. If it is no, the decision is wrong, or if it is not satisfied, then it goes to another state, state 2. So of course these states are defined with the help of connectors. So it is possible to have multiple decision box. So as we can see here, so this figure shows the multiple decision box. where depending upon line state it can go to be whether it is busy or whether it is free, or the line state itself is invalid. So depending upon what we can have different states or different directions. So that is what multiple decision box used in state transition diagram. So now let us consider an example in which we need to draw a state transition diagram using the specification and description language. Generally specification and description language is said as SDL language. That is SDL symbols for a local telephone call. So we know how a local telephone call will be established between end users, that is calling person and to the called person. So for that scenario or for that case, we will draw a state transition diagram. We will make use of signal exchange diagram for a local call. So with respect to this, we will have, or we will write a state transition diagram in with respect to a local call telephone, that is local telephone call. So initially we know the system will be in the idle state. Of course state 0 is defined. So this is what the state box is. So once it is in idle, so we know the calling person goes off hook and he starts sending C signal or call request signal to the exchange. So that is what event box is, and of course from calling signal to the exchange the signal is sent, so that's why it is intruded arrow is placed. So that is what call request. Once call request is received by the exchange, so the exchange will identify calling line. Exchange will identify the calling line. So as we have seen here, so as C signal or call request signal is received, so the exchange will identify who is making the call, and also the exchange will decide what are the class of service that are available with this customer. So after identifying calling line, the exchange will determine class of service. After determining, it will identify the calling party for billing. It will identify the calling party for billing. So once it has identified, a connection will be made. So a connection to calling line is made. Of course all these are action boxes. All these are action boxes. So once connection is being made, proceed to send signal will be sent to the calling person. So since the exchange is sending the signal, that is send signal, this also comes under action box, we know that. So proceed to send is given or sent to the calling person. Once he receives the proceed to send signal, he starts dialing the address. So once he is receiving the proceed to send signal, the exchange or the switching system is now in state 1. So what state box is? So now the system is in state 1 and it is waiting for the address signal. The system is waiting for the, or the exchange is waiting for the address signal. So once the calling person starts dialing the number, once he completes the dial number, so address signal will be sent to the exchange. So that is what intruded arrow is. So this is what an event box. So address signal is given to the exchange, and now the exchange will decides where the intended destination or called person is. That is, it will select called line and then it will determine the terminating class of service. It will determine the terminating, that is this class of service of the called person. So once it has decided, it will check, the exchange will check the line whether the intended, that is called person, is free or not. So it has to test the line. So depending upon whether the line is free or whether the line is busy or whether the intended person line is unobtainable, that is not reachable. So we will have three different cases. Let us assume the destination called person is busy. If the called person is busy, then a busy tone should be sent to the calling person. So that is what busy tone will be sent to the calling person. Otherwise, if this person is not reachable or some connection is damaged, connection to this particular called person is damaged due to earthquake or something else, so in such case unobtainable scenario will be observed. So in that case, so this arrow should be in this direction. This arrow should be opposite to that of shown in this figure. So in that case, number unobtainable tone should be sent to the calling person. So he is not available, that message should be, or that ringtone should be sent by the exchange to the calling person. So in both cases it will be resulting into state 4, that is called line is unavailable. So it is going into state 4, that is called line is this person is not at all available to receive the call. This is what called line is unavailable. So of course, once it goes to state 4, it will send the clear signal, or the exchange will send the clear signal. So that is forward clear signal. Forward clear signal will be sent, and then disconnection will be made. So disconnect calling line means calling line. So this is the calling line. Calling line will be disconnected. So once disconnection occurs, it again comes back to state 0, that is idle state. Once disconnection occurs, it comes back to idle state. Otherwise, if the calling person is free, if the called person is free, then a connection will be established, connect to called line. So from the exchange, a connection must be made to the called line. After establishing a connection to called line, a ringing signal will be sent, or alert signal will be sent. Alert signal from the exchange to the called person. As we have seen here, alert signal is sent to the, once address is received, and if this person is free, an alert signal will be sent to the call terminal. So in the same way, alert in the sense ringing signal will be sent. So that is what forward signal is to the called person. So again, a ringtone need to be sent, that is status signal or ringtone must be sent to the calling person, saying that a ringing tone is observed, or this person is made connected. So as we can see here, so status or call progress signal is sent. So in the same way, so once here ringing take place, that ringing must be able to observed by the calling person. So this is what the idea is. So ringtone will be sent to the calling person by the exchange. So after this, or if this state is said to be state 2, and the exchange is waiting for the answer. So once he holds his hook, that is his handset, so from this state, that is state 2, it goes to answer. So state 0 is idle state, and state 1 is waiting for answer, waiting for address from this person, that is calling person. The exchange is waiting, and state 2 is waiting for answer from the called person. So once the exchange receives the answer signal. So once he takes the handset, so answer signal will be sent. So as we know, answer signal will be sent to the exchange, and of course this answer signal should be forwarded to calling person. So answer signal will be received by the exchange. So from this person, that is what an event is, and the same answer signal should be forwarded to the calling person. So that is what action box is. So once answer signal is received by the calling person, a connection will be established from the calling person to the called person via the local exchange. So that is what connect lines is about. So once connection is established, the system is going into state 3. The system is going into state 3, and that is what conversation state is, where conversation takes place between end users, calling and the called person. So once this calling person wants to terminate the call, he sends the clear signal. So as we have seen, forward clear signal is sent to the exchange. Of course, that is forwarded to called person. So clear signal is sent to the exchange. That is what event box is. And then again, so please note that we observe backward clear also. So the opposite direction, that is what backward clear, that is also an event given to the calling person. So once backward clear is observed, by the calling person, the connection will be disconnected by the switching system, that is exchange. So connection will be disconnected. So disconnect the lines that was established before. Once disconnection take place, again the system goes back to state 0. Again it comes back to state 0. So that is what the state transition diagram is in establishing a local telephone call. So that is what simplified state transition diagram in establishing a local call. Of course, the explanation of this is already defined in section 2.1. Next, let us discuss what stored program control exchange is about, how stored program SPC exchange operates, or what is the idea behind SPC, how